but today we're going to talk about being a little bit exhausted. The box. And we're going to talk about and get that on. Before I can do that though, I need to take off this fender. The axle's just kind of held in there. As you can see, the brake calipers are kind of hanging. Did get a brake lever finally on it, so got all that old crap off. That's a improvement in itself. And you know, like I said, I fitted the front fairing. This windshield is actually the stock windshield off of that bike. No, it does not fit correctly. There's a little bit of a, this hangs over a little bit. So probably what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this, I'll buff it out, see if I can make that work. Curvature is a little bit different. Hole spacing is different on the 14 ups than it was from the 13 downs. So does it fit perfectly? No. Did put the mirrors on finally though. We're at the point where I'm not messing with bars and stuff anymore. Also got the clutch cable run, so now that's in place where it goes. I think it's adjusted correctly. We'll find out after we get the exhaust on, get this thing fired up, and see how she sounds with the new exhaust on it. So here's our old tank, right? Our old beat up POS. I was doing a little bit of, on this side, I was doing a little bit of test sanding, really with just 320 grit, just to make sure everything's flat. So this is the new tank. This is the tank we're putting on. I've already de-ate it once just to get the old paint off. I still got a little bit of work to do. You see where it's kind of glossy here? That's the clear coat that was on there. That all has to come out yet. I'm not too worried about making sure that I get all of the red off, because this is going to all get epoxy primered. There was one small dent right here that I just glassed over. We will sand that out and prime that and stuff. Now this tank is going to get a urethane, because we're doing a urethane single stage when I paint it. The tank will get a urethane primered first. Obviously this fender being absolutely bare steel, and you see it's already got I sweated on it, so it started to rust a little bit. That's going to get epoxy primered, so it's sealed well. After the epoxy primer is on, it'll get a very, very light coat, maybe about a 800 grit at the, at least, maybe even more, finer. And then that'll get urethane coated. It'll get final wet sanded, so everything's smoothed out before the top coat goes on. And then we'll, do that. But that's going to be a while. The paint should be here in about a week. Both the urethane primer, the epoxy primer, and the top coat. So all that's on its way. Unfortunately, though, poor Big Blue has been neglected a little bit. She's dirty as all get out, and it'll be what it's going to be. Let me go ahead and get the front fender off, get the axle back on, get the calipers back on, because once I get the exhaust on, I want to ride this thing around the block again. Because when I took it, if you saw the video, and I'll maybe shoot it up here, over there, wherever it goes, I did ride this once, right after I got the front end together and everything. What I found was the neck bearings were way too loose, so I had to take everything back apart, retorque the neck bearings down. I think it's okay now. We'll find out after I get the exhaust on, but we'll talk about the exhaust when I get that out of the box, and we'll be right back. Hang in there. Hey honey, want to see my bung holes? Bung holes!
TP.
No, there's no TP going in my bung hole.
TP for your bung holes.
So, S&S Sidewinder with 2-in-1 with one big ass muffler. So we're gonna have to pull the gaskets out of the heads and get the new ones in. And honey, you sure you don't want to see my bung hole?
Carve it up for you.
No, I gotta put my bung hole plugs. I gotta plug my bung holes. Don't I have nice bung holes? There's two bung holes. You like bung holes, don't you?
They're shiny.
Yeah, bung holes. Alright, back in a minute. We've got our plugs in our bung holes. This bike does not have O2 sensors on it, so we're plug those out. The new kit comes, the whole kit, and let me get some of that crap out of the way. heat shields. Also comes with what S&S calls their DB reducer, which is basically just a straight piece of pipe that fits into this monstrosity, which is just a louvered, you probably can't see that, it's a louvered baffle. I'm sorry, not a louvered baffle, it's a perforated baffle. So if you think that this is too loud, you can put that DB reducer in there. Guess what? There is no such thing as too loud, so no DB reducers going into my bike. Bag of parts. It does come with new tapered. There's two different type of gaskets for your exhaust. One set is tapered. The other ones are basically a flat square one like that. That is depending on the exhaust that you have. Most of the race type exhaust systems will use a square as opposed to a tapered. So if you look at this, see this tapers, and this gasket sits into that taper and then squishes inside the head, in case you've never done these before. Now, getting these out of the old ones out is really easy. Getting the new ones in is usually a pain in the ass. So off camera, what I have also done is I've gone ahead and put the retaining brackets on these impossible to get off on and off rings. This whole pipe has been wiped down with everybody's favorite AutoZone brake cleaner to get all the oils and crap off of that. Once I get it on, yes, I will wipe it all back down so there's no fingerprints or anything on it. But first, I gotta find my pick. I don't know where the hell I put my good pick to get those gaskets out of the head. So hang on a second, let me go pull those off camera because it's gonna be impossible to do holding a camera and trying to pull them out at the same time. So again, back in a minute. I talked about two style gaskets, ones that are tapered and ones that are square, basically flat. So I actually have a set of flat ones here. So if you look at this, see how it's flat? There's no taper to it on both sides. It's a flat gasket. As opposed to this, which is, you see, is flat, and you look around the other side, you see it's tapered out, right? And that's to fit this style flange. If you tried to use one of these square ones on this flange, see, it doesn't slip over it, and it's going to crush in. Keep in mind, now remember, these are single use only. You can't reuse. If you're going to change exhaust systems or pull your head pipe off or that, get new gaskets. Don't try and reuse the old ones. You're going to have trouble with sealing. Now these are a little bit munged up because I had to put a pick in it to pull it out. But you see how this is, squared out a little bit? It's from that exhaust gasket, that exhaust system that was in there. It conformed to its shape. These, I believe, were the wrong gaskets to be using on that one because I think that was a square head. It wasn't a rounded one. These are tapered gaskets. It appears, I think these are tapered gaskets. So these might have been the wrong ones to be using on that because there was a lot of carbon buildup, even around the exhaust gasket, or the area on the head, the exhaust port where the gasket sits. So I had to clean all that off. So don't reuse your old gaskets. Don't even think about it. Yes, I know that's munged up because of putting a pick on it to pull it out. Don't reuse them. Always put in new head gaskets. They're cheap. You pull your head pipes off, put new gaskets on. So let me go ahead and get the front one on, and then we'll start fitting the exhaust system on. This kit also, by the way, comes with a set of floorboard spacers for both sides, just to move your floorboards away. Now you move one side, you got to move the other side. So that means eventually I got to pull the floorboard off the other side anyways, because I've got to change I'm going to be changing the primary cover, because unfortunately this primary cover, because of the screw-ups of the crash, and then right here there's a line that runs all the way down, and that's from somebody after the crash trying to move the shifter peg around. So that has got a good scratch going out. So I'm going to replace this primary cover anyways. And I got a new cover for this because I'm not too keen on the flame part, but if anybody wants this, just let me know and you can have it. And fits the twin cam series, older ones. So, alright, let me get the other gasket in, and then we'll look at setting up the head pipe and trying to get that going. Alright, back in a minute. Do this. As I said before, I already wiped down these pipes once. Once being okay, fine. I got the outside oils on. There's a lot of shit on the inside from the mineral bending process. The first time you fire it up, it's going to stink, it's going to smoke. Yeah, whatever. S&S does send along a complete set of instructions on how to... Ooh, and stickers. Ooh, S&S stickers. How to put all of this stuff on and together. The instructions will tell you to go ahead and put the heat shields on first, and then as well as the clamps and stuff like that. I need to get the bracket on. There's a bracket that actually goes in under here, underneath the transmission. I'm in the way. These two bolts got to come out. The bracket goes in. There's two sets of brackets. One bracket is longer than the other. As I throw them all over the place. These brackets are basically a shorter one and a longer one. It depends on which year model, which year you have. So the 95 through 08s use one bracket. The 95 through 08, yes, and the 09 through 13 use a different set. So what I'm going to do here is my experience in doing lots of pipes in the past. Don't put the heat shields on first. Here's why. When you go to put the nuts on the heads to hold it in, you're not going to get your socket or your wrench up in there because the heat shield's going to be in the way. All you're going to end up doing is taking the heat shield back off and then putting it back on again. So instead of monkey around with that 12 times, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera here quick. I'm going to put the bracket on. You don't need to, I mean, if you don't know how to do it, I'll show you, but it's just 2 bolts. Take them out, put them back in. That's all it is. And then we'll get that in there. So get that bracket in there. There's that bracket, that exhaust bracket, that hanger that goes underneath the transmission. This is a clamshell deal, goes around the pipe and then bolts to that. So this holds it in place so that it's got some stability there. We'll get that going, we'll get that started, but I will turn the camera back on when I go to put the pipe on, because you'll get to hear me swearing at it constantly about the fact that it doesn't line up at all. It's just a matter of fact, you got to monkey around with it, getting the front pipe and the rear pipe in place, actually into the head, trying to get the clamps back on and get all of that in place and lined up, and all that kind of good stuff can be a pain in the butt sometimes. But once you get them started, then you're good to go. Leave everything loose. Don't tighten everything up. Don't start at the head and start going through and you're going, oh, okay, I got it all tightened up. No, start at the back. Get everything hung, get everything loose. Tighten up your muffler to your mounts on your saddlebag supports. Tighten up the muffler to the head pipe, and then tighten up the head pipe to the underneath the transmission, then tighten the head itself. All right. There's torque specs on these. I'm gonna have to pull the torque specs, and actually no, they tell you right here, tighten bolts. So looks like they got the torque specs all written in the documentation. So we'll get that going. Give me a second to get the bracket on, and we'll be right back. And that transmission bracket, the one that goes underneath the transmission, is 15 to 18 foot-pounds, so I went 16 and a half, split things in the middle. One of the things I kind of was impressed with this kit from S&S, even for your head bolts, your nuts for your bolts to hold the exhaust on. I have so here's the old ones that I took off. I actually spent a lot of time with these, putting them in, soaking them in a rust remover, and then coating them with a metal prep from who the hell's that with? PR15. So it gives it basically a zinc coating to them. So these nuts look really nice now, you know. But the kit comes with brand new nuts, and they've also got kind of a built-in, you know, serration lock washer kind of deal. So we're going to use those rather than using the ones I have. But one of the things I'm going to do, just because these are kind of rusty, older heads, studs. You know, it's a 2007 bike. Studs are a little bit on the older side. What we're doing, I'm just going to put just a little bit. I'm not going to go hog wild here, kids. Don't go, you know, painting the town silver, so to speak. we're just going to put a little bit of anti-seize, and so that I'm not going to get the big can and just start globbing it everywhere. Going to I have a paintbrush that I use for anti-seize. Give me a little better control than how much I put on there and that. So I'm going to just put just a bit, and it will move around on the studs as the bolts go on. So I'm just giving it just a little bit, which isn't a bad idea. Now keep in mind that in high heat situations like an exhaust system, anti-seize is going to burn off. No matter what you do, it's going to burn off. It's going to turn to a powder, and it's just going to burn off. Not a bad thing, but it helps things go on a little bit easier. While I've got anti-seize on the brain, I'm going to tell you that one of the other things that I find extremely beneficial is anti-seize. When you go to put your muffler on, and we're going to do this, I'll show you. Put anti-seize on the inside of the fitting where it slides onto the head plate. Why? It makes it a little bit slipperier, and it will go on a hell of a lot easier. And then you need to take it back off. You can, not a problem. It'll come off a lot easier. Again, in the heat, it will basically disintegrate and powderize, but it will actually keep that thing from binding up. And when you go to take the thing off in 2 years, for whatever reason, you can't get the damn thing off, and you're sitting there wiggling and beating and crapping, and it's just annoying. Trust me on that one. Put anti-seize on it, it'll slip on, make it easier to rotate around the line up, all that kind of stuff, right? So let's get to the head plate. If I can get in here and do this. It's always a pain in the butt. You gotta work around brake pedals, and I might have to take the brake pedal off. I don't know. I'm probably going to have to take my brake pedal off, because this is going to be a short and a half. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's close. Yeah. We're halfway there. Yeah. Yep, you're going to look at my back for a minute while I try to get this head pipe lined up. There we go. It's in the ports, but see, all right. Here's where you have a love-hate relationship with exhaust pipes. I don't know if it's on camera or not. I can't see, but right here is my flange I need. Up there, this is going to be in the way. This is in the way. This is going to be a fun chore to get up. So, give me a minute. Let me try and figure this one out. Might have to pull the whole thing back out. Nope, maybe not. No, yeah, there we go. Pass the brake. There we go. Okay. If I can get it lined up in the studs, make sure the head's actually in the head. Both sides is. Alright. Got the back one working. I should get the nuts on. Get those started. Socket. A hell of a lot easier trying to get your fingers in there to get it started. Just make sure you don't cross thread them. They should go on smooth. If there's any major resistance, you're doing it wrong. Right? That's the top one. Now this is, now that they're started, now I'm just finger loose. I'm just fingering them in. Fingering them in. We won't talk about that with bung holes either. So I'm just kind of getting them finger snug in there just to make sure that they're on. Pipe doesn't fall off, because then we'll do alignment after that. So we got the front one. Top nut. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Alright, so that one's going to cause me an issue with trying to get the nut on with the socket. So, because of the proximity of the pipe to the down tube, And that's giving me a bit of an angst in that one. But there we go. Now we got enough. It's like really close to the brake lever. Hopefully this will pull out. Now we got a clamshell. That's going to go around the bottom pipe of the 2. And that. This is why you leave it loose, right? So I needed to pull it out in order to get it lined up. Now somewhere in this kit is a bolt. And a nut that goes for that bolt. And based on that hole, I know, real men don't need instructions. I'm going to look at the instructions, only because I want to see that bolt comes from the bottom up, top down. Alright, so it comes from the top down. Now you notice that that's got the square on it. The bracket's got the square on it. So in order to get this to line up correctly, I think the prudent activity would be to help me here to put these brackets to mount underneath that flange so that that bolt actually has something to lock to when you're tightening it down. If I can get the bloody bolt in there. Alright, now I'm getting mad. And the brake fell off again. Alright. Okay, that's not working for me. You can't get the bracket, can't get the bolt in with the bracket in place. Awfully long bloody bolt too. So I'm going to pull that bracket, we'll loosen that, see if I can loosen that bracket up. And get that bolt down in there. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to turn this off while I do that. With that bracket a little bit, but it's on there now. So, bracket's on. Everything's loose, so you can see it rattles around. It moves. Bracket's loose. Head still has to be torqued down and everything. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some anti-seize on the inside of, it's going to make a mess, the inside of this muffler so that when I slip it on, I can actually get it over that head pipe. Again, I'm going to, ow, god damn it, I'm going to use some of my paintbrush, not use the whole thing, because I can control it better. And I'm going to put my fingers in here, make a mess out of myself, probably, and smooth all of this out, because I probably have way too much on there. Perfect. So this will help, believe it or not, this actually does help it slide on, because it gives it some lubrication. Oh, one other thing I didn't talk about is when you put the exhaust gaskets into the heads. One thing that I find, if you have trouble getting them in, you can use anti-seize on there, I guess, if you want to help lubricate it, to slide it in. You know, nobody likes going in dry, and unless you like going in dry, then that's up to you. But it makes it a little bit easier to get things in. The other thing to do, and it's probably one of the better things to do, is to use the exhaust flange gasket, the exhaust flange, and just slide it on, use your bolt nuts, tighten it in, and it'll give you even pressure to push that gasket in. Just make sure it's seated with the heads. It will push in a little bit too when you go to torque on it, and it's going to seat itself a little bit better if it needs to, but for the most part, as long as they're flush with the outside of the head, you should be good to go. Yeah, see if we can get this monstrosity on somewhat lined up. See, look at how easy that slipped on. It's like, man, looser than a $2 whore. So I'm going to put the bolts, the nuts, in the retaining bracket. Again, just loose. I don't want to tighten everything up. I want to kind of dry fit a little bit first. We're going to probably have to slide the muffler in or out a little bit. And I'm an idiot. I just realized, so don't pay too much attention to me. There's a key piece of this that I forgot about. You kind of sort of need this exhaust gasket. You kind of need to get that clamp on there before you put the muffler on. Otherwise, how are you sealing the muffler to the pipe? Okay. And here again, why we use anti-seize. So I'll pull this back off. Slide my clamp back on. And look at how easy that comes off. Now, the key here is when you look at your muffler orientation, don't put this where it's going to be underneath the heat shield and you can't get to it to tighten it up afterwards. Make sure it's, pointing on the inside and down. And that is like absolutely snug. Holy crap. Alright, that might need to be loosened a little bit first. Is that a quarter? It is not. What the hell is that? Metric? I'll be dipped if that's not a freaking metric. Holy crap. Alright, hang on a second. This is going to be probably a 6 or 7 millimeter. Let's try a 6 first. And there we go. That's a 6 millimeter. Why do we have to have metric crap on an American bike? I will not know. And I have a sidebar. I feel sorry for y'all up north. I'm starting to sweat like a pig doing this. And yes, the struggle is real. And big old and there. So that's about 90% of the job. What we just did. Getting it in, getting it on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera here. You don't need to see me flipping around a torque wrench. I'm going to start tightening all this up, get the heat shields on, and see where we're at. Floorboard spacers I'll do at another point. I do want to get this on and set up correctly as far as heat shield alignment and everything. And that's another thing with the muffler. There's this, because it's a 2-in-1 clunk. This particular piece of cover is going to need to be lined up. I'm going to put all the fasteners and stuff in it, but it's going to need to be lined up so that it gives a nice clean, you don't want it sitting like this and you can't see it. There's this massive gap around it, right? You want to have this so that it sits there and gives you nice gap, even flow, all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to have to play with that a little bit and get those things lined up and see where we're at. We will be back. We'll definitely will be back. I'll make sure that you guys aren't left out on getting the thing fired up the first time with this new exhaust and seeing what it sounds like. If you saw the me riding it video when I found out that the neck bearings were too loose, because after I put it back up on the jack and went, it moved. It shouldn't move back and forth. So readjusted all that. I want to run it again around the block once or twice just to make sure everything's copacetic there, as well as clutch adjustment, ensure my clutch adjustment's good, which we did get the new clutch cable and everything in, so we're good there. But let me do that. Let me get this back up and then we'll be back for a startup. Thanks. Whole thing on. Just going to get some last minute fingerprints off, so I'm spraying her down alcohol based cleaner, get all the fingerprints and crap off of it, and then we'll give you a full shot of the whole thing in just a second here. We've got this pollen down here is just ridiculous. So one of the things that's kind of fun is getting this bracket, this heat shield rather, actually has two little tabs in here that flip into behind these heat shields. One butt clamp, and then kind of trying to get this gap so that it's a nice clean, not an uneven gap, not a big, hole poking through the side. So one of the things I have a problem with here is this Kiriakin brake lever actually hits the heat shield. So we're going to do something about that. Probably what I'll do is I'm going to put a soft brake on it. Problem is, to get that brake lever off and get that pin out, I'm going to have to pull the whole fucking exhaust off again. Oh my god. So, well, let's see. Hopefully the battery's not dead. Let's see if she'll fire up. See what she sounds like. Run. Let's see what we got. Let's hope she's in neutral. Yes, she is. Okay. Otherwise, you're launching. Nope, battery's dead. Alright, so I'm not gonna hear it fire up today. It's almost 5 o'clock, it's dinner time. Go out and have family night. I'll put the tender on it and we'll get her fired up tomorrow. So stay tuned, we'll be back. Yeah. So, obviously, another day. Bike's been on a tender overnight. Hopefully we got enough battery for it. Let's see if we can get this thing fired up. See what the new exhaust sounds like. Hopefully I don't have any leaks in it. Again, I did wipe it off again last night after I got the heat shields on and everything. So it should be copacetic. And let's see what we have going for us today. There she is, all set up. Put the saddlebag back on just because. Let's see what we got. In neutral. Yep. Shakes like a twin cam. Alright, so man, she stinks too from all that shit that's on the inside from the mandrel bending. I knew it was going to smell bad. But she fires, she sounds really nice. That's got a nice crack to it when you hit on the throttle. So one of the things that did find, and this is going to be an issue, and I'm going to have to change out the brake lever. I put a Kiriakin brake lever on it. What I really wanted was a soft brake, like I have on my other bikes, like I have on my wife's bike. But I went and said, well, let's go. Oh God, you can't see anything. Let's go cheap and get the Kiriakin one. And there's a problem. So right here, brake, heat shield, brake, heat shield. So that's going to have to come back apart. In order to get the pin into the master cylinder, exhaust will be in the way, so the exhaust will eventually have to come back off in order to do that, but I'll have to order that brake lever. If you've never seen a soft brake lever, I highly recommend them. Got them on both my bike and the wife's bike. And as you can see here, what it does is this brake lever now lays down instead of being all the way up here where it's uncomfortable. Lays it down here, makes a much better situation for it. So we'll cut it off here. Sounds great. I'm actually happy with this pipe. Gotta get a ghost pipe. It's on back order. They're terribly back ordered on those things right now. Nobody's got them for the ghost pipe, just to go to the other side so that we have, both sides filled, because this side here looks kind of funny with nothing in it. So during final assembly, we'll move this so that this centers out a little bit better. S&S actually makes a bracket that helps center that. So it's a U-shaped bracket instead of the normal straight hangers. Allows you to make that adjustment in there to move it left or right a little bit to where you need it. So like I said, right now this is just making sure everything's copacetic. As far as it running, it sounds amazing. And speaking of sounding amazing, my neighbor's car sounds amazing when he fires that sucker up. But anyways, we'll cut it off here. I think this is kind of long enough of a video for this time around. So remember, ride fast, take chances. See ya!